45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place you're getting out overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor, 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Chris Hess and Michael Samter rocking and rolling with me all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Coming up an hour 20 from now, college basketball royalty. You know him. You either love him or you hate him. It's split 50-50 right down the middle. Christian Laettner is going to stop by. And then in the final hour of the show, Brendan Haywood will be in Salt Lake City for the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament. He's a CBS Sports college basketball analyst. He's going to pop by as well. All righty. I want to start with a little football today because there's three quarterbacks, and two of them we've heard a lot about. And two of those quarterbacks, there's been a lot in regards to their contract extension. The other, I don't think we've even said a word about his contract extension on this show. And when you get into Dak Prescott, when you get into Tua Tagovailoa, and then you also get into Jared Goff, you know, Dak has been in the news. We know that they just slightly restructured his deal. They added the 2 void years, which are basically irrelevant, and it's a minuscule payoff of reducing that almost $60 million salary cap number down by $4 million. You get to Tua Tagovailoa. It seems like the Dolphins are all in on Tua Tagovailoa. We know Mike McDaniel is. That is Chris Greer's guy. But they still have not rewarded him yet with the contract extension. And you see Dak and you see Tua, neither have had postseason success. I know it's a small sample size for Tua, but the Dolphins were a team that were humming. The Dolphins were a team that were looking really good midway through the season, and then the season did go on. You kind of realize, well, the Miami Dolphins are a fraudulent football team. The Dolphins are someone that they beat up on the bad teams, like when the Broncos were horrendous, they hung a 70 spot on them. But when they went up against the better teams, they did jack. And they had 2 opportunities to go up against the NFL's best when they were vulnerable in the Kansas City Chiefs. And Tua did not have 2 good plays towards the end of the game in Germany. And then the postseason, the frigid temperatures in Kansas City, the Dolphins may as well not even flown to the game. They may as well not even got off the bus and entered Arrowhead Stadium because they didn't have a pulse in that contest. So the Dolphins with Tua, you're wondering, is this just a situation that's kind of like what Dak is with the Dallas Cowboys, which I think it is, by the way, where the Dolphins and the Cowboys both have enough talent to get the job done. However, regardless of what they ooh and ah you with in the regular seaon. Come postseason time, Dak Prescott isn't leading you to a Super Bowl. Tua Tagovailoa isn't leading you to a Super Bowl. And let's not even say Super Bowl. How about just a conference title game? Because the Cowboys haven't been there since the 1995 season. And the Dolphins, I don't think they're going to get there anytime soon, even with the multitude of weapons that they have on the offensive side of the ball, with the Tyreek Hill and also a Jalen Waddle, and also the offensive play calling of a Mike McDaniel. So those two guys really just signify what the NFL is all about right now in terms of the dilemma where quarterbacks make great money, but just because you do make great money does not mean you're a great quarterback. Like, Dak is a good quarterback. Tua is a good quarterback. Both are going to get ridiculous contracts, and they're not going to live up to the money that they're going to be able to get paid. But then once again, you say, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to get rid of Dak? Are you going to get rid of Tua? I don't think there's any chance that the drama Dallas choking Cowboys at the end of this season, barring injury, even if they don't get the deal done this offseason, I don't think there's any chance that the Dallas Cowboys are going to get rid of Dak Prescott. The Dolphins, I think it's a little bit trickier. And for the Dolphins, I do say between Dak and Tua, if I had to feel more comfortable in terms of who I think is going to get extended this offseason, I actually think it's more likely that Tua gets the extension this offseason than it is Dak. But I would personally not give the extension to Dak Prescott to Tua Tagovailoa this offseason. And the reason why is because, yes, Tua just got through a season healthy this year, but let's see if he could replicate that success in back-to-back years. Because what happens if you give the contract to Tua, and then in week 3, this upcoming season, Tua gets hurt, leaves the game with a concussion? Then you're right back into the hopper of the conversation that we went through, which was, oh, you can't trust Tua Tagovailoa, unfortunately, to stay healthy. I know concussions are different injuries, but there's other injuries with Tua, whether it's leg, whether it's a hip, whether it's a shoulder. There's been a lot with Tua. So for the Dolphins, don't panic, don't rush. Don't be teams that have prematurely gave a team or a player a contract extension and then instantly a year later regret it. I think the Dolphins should play this out. And then at the end of the year, if Tua oohs and ahs you, then you give him the contract extension. But I bring up Jared Goff, and I want to make a bigger point here on Jared Goff. It is funny. Like 3 years ago, if I said to you, who's the quarterback that you trust the most between Dak Prescott, I guess Tua at the time was at Alabama or just wrapping up at Alabama, or would it be Jared Goff? I think everyone's list would probably have Tua 1, would have Dak Prescott 2, and then would have Jared Goff 3. And you could argue maybe since Tua was unproven at the time, that maybe it would be Dak 1 and Tua 2. You could flip-flop that. But 3 years ago, when you started to see the Rams give up on Jared Goff, who got to a Super Bowl, played well in the second half of that NFC Championship game up against the Saints, and then in the Super Bowl just was dreadful. That was the start where Sean McVay said, okay, Jared Goff is good, but I think there's limitations in Jared Goff's game, and I think we need something better. And that's when they eventually orchestrated this trade where Jared Goff was basically a throw-in to the Detroit Lions, where they got an extra first-round draft pick attached to it when you go back to that deal where they got 2 1s for Matthew Stafford, and it worked out for the Rams because the Rams ended up winning a Super Bowl in year 1 of Matthew Stafford. But something that has been underappreciated has been what Jared Goff has been able to do in Detroit. And the Lions right now are even underappreciating Jared Goff. And they could change that this offseason because Jared Goff, just like Dak, Jared Goff, just like Tua, he also enters the final year of his deal. But over the weekend, you saw the announcement that Brad Holmes, the general manager of the Lions, Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Lions, they got contract extensions through the 2027 season. Now, I'll bring up the Arizona Cardinals. And the reason why I bring up the Arizona Cardinals is And I'm not saying these guys deserve contract extensions like Holmes and Campbell did. Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury did not. But in that year where Kyler Murray, 2 off seasons ago, I believe it was, where he was very frustrated and he was upset about his contract, once you give the contract extension to the general manager, which the Cardinals did, once you give the contract extension to the head coach, which the Cardinals did, the Cardinals lost all leverage. Because you can't tell me that you believe in the GM and you believe in the head coach, but then you don't believe in the quarterback who the general manager drafted and the head coach developed. So that's the same thing that just happened in Detroit, but there's more of a positive feeling because the Lions were just in an NFC title game. And everyone loves Brad Holmes and his energy. Everyone loves Dan Campbell and his energy. And now the last domino to fall is Jared Goff getting a contract extension. And Jared Goff should not only get a contract extension, Jared Goff is turning into someone that you could trust with the Detroit Lions. And unlike Tua, he's not in the AFC. He's in the NFC where it's wide open, where year by year we vacillate ever since the departure of Aaron Rodgers from the NFC, ever since the departure, crazy to say it this way, Tom Brady from the NFC. There's really not a guy that we look at in the NFC and we say he's the best quarterback. Like the quarterback that I trust the most, the quarterback that I think is the best in the NFC right now heading into the season is Matthew Stafford. We did this 2 weeks ago, right? Samter said it's going to be Jalen Hurts is the one that he thinks is the best in the NFC. And people give me other answers. But Jared Goff has put himself in a conversation where Detroit, which is not always a good football team, and they're usually a bad football team, they were a contender last year, and now they are one of the better teams in football entering this season. And when it comes to Jared Goff, he has been really damn good with the Detroit Lions. Like, I remember when he got traded to Detroit, no one thought that Jared Goff was their long-term plan. And now, as we enter the final year of his contract, he almost has to be their long-term plan. Because what are you going to do, and who are you going to replace him with to make that team vastly better? And I understand, just like Dak and just like Tua, Goff has those limitations where he's in the grouping of being a good quarterback, but not a great quarterback. But he at least has got to an NFC championship game with the Lions. He got to a Super Bowl with the LA Rams. And forget the situation, but if you just look at the individual player, he may not be sexy, he may not be popular, and he may not have the biggest name, but I have more confidence with those 3 guys entering the final year of their contract to go have the better next 4 or 5 years or whatever this extension is going to be. I put all the chips and I put all the eggs out of those, between those 3 guys in the basket of Jared Goff. Like, I trust Jared Goff a lot more than Tua, and I trust Jared Goff a lot more than Dak Prescott. I know some people could say, well, Goff and Kirk Cousins and Dak, they're all kind of similar. And it doesn't mean that they're all not going to go get their money. But Jared Goff now in 2 different spots. And Jared Goff has been someone that everyone tries to take away from him. And he has detractors. All the dude has done has been able to win games. And even though you were a number 1 overall pick and you didn't exceed those expectations with the Rams, you have exceeded those expectations in Detroit. So when you look at those 3 guys, 1, 2, and 3, for the next 5 years, who's the quarterback that you have the most confidence in? And how do you rank them 1, 2, and 3? Goff, for me, is number 1. And then it comes into Dak and Tua. I think Dak right now is a better quarterback than Tua, but I've seen so many years of Dak that there's still maybe some untapped potential with Tua. So I would actually take a gamble here and take a risk on having more confidence in Tua than I would Dak Prescott. But that's how I would rank them for the next 5 years. Goff would be 1. I would then put Tua Tagovailoa at 2, and then Dak Prescott in at number 3. Samter, when you look at this, because it's funny to me, Detroit now has become a big brand. Detroit has now become a popular team. Detroit has become a team that we've talked about a lot. I do find it funny that all the contract talk so far has been about Dak. And I get it, right? America's team, Jerry Jones, he loves the drama. Then you look at Tua, there's been a lot of conversation about his potential contract extension that we've had on this show. I think this is the first time we've mentioned it. Jared Goff's contract. Because like last year, right, they drafted Hendon Hooker, I think it was in the 3rd round, and they said, if he get healthy, maybe that's a project, and he could eventually replace Jared Goff. Like, even with how the Lions succeeded at the end of last season, there were still questions going into the quarterback position for the Lions this year. And everyone acknowledged the Lions had a good situation and they were on the come up. But this was the past year where people started to tip the cap and acknowledge that Jared Goff is actually a good quarterback in this league. And when you look at those 3 guys, I don't think it's far-fetched whatsoever to say for the next 5 years, I'd rather have Goff over Tua and Goff over Dak Prescott. What say you?
I 100% agree with you, which I think is the first time in my life I've ever said that sentence, that I 100% agree with you.
You actually have finally displayed some intelligence then on this radio show, they will say.
I know I must have had a different cup of coffee because apparently I'm seeing things clearly. But not only do I agree with you about Jared Goff, I think it's a long time coming. I think that people are finally starting to see it. But he was good in L.A., he was good in Detroit. He might not be the splashy, super like Patrick Mahomes, but he's a former number 1 overall pick, so we know he has the talent, right? He led a team to the Super Bowl, even though they were terrible in that game, luckily for your Patriots.
Well, because the coach, Sean McVay, was like too busy sucking Belichick's bosom.
Bosom, there you go. Thank you for correcting that word.
Right before the start of the game, he was like, Bill, it's so nice to be in the Super Bowl. I have so much respect and reverence for you.
Well, he was kind of hoping that if you blew up Belichick's ego enough that maybe Bill would kind of lose himself a little bit. But
no, that happened in the Super Bowl before with Malcolm Butler and the Eagles.
Outside of his first year in 2016 with Jeff Fisher, which was a train wreck, he went 0-7 in relief. Since 2017, the dude's averaging 28 touchdowns and 12 picks over the course of a 17-game season, 4,500 yards, completing 65% of his passes. The dude just wins. He's got like a record of, 66 and 43 outside of that first year that was kind of a train wreck. The guy's a winner. He completes passes. He can throw downfield. He can throw short. He throws touchdowns. He doesn't make big mistakes. He's a really good quarterback. He's probably a top 10 quarterback who can absolutely lead a team to a Super Bowl.
And if you're sitting in your car right now or you're listening to us on the app and you go, these guys are crazy. Jared Goff would have had a better playoff game if he was on the Cowboys than what Dak Prescott did this past year up against Green Bay. Not only that, Jared Goff would have done a lot better. I know it's a low bar than what Tua Tagovailoa did on the road in Kansas City in the postseason. And it's not like none of these teams don't have talent. Like the Lions, you have St. Brown. He's phenomenal. You have Jahmyr Gibbs. He's really damn good. But the Dolphins have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And then you take a look at Dak Prescott. He has CeeDee Lamb. So it's not like none of these teams don't have the talent where you're starting to say, that's why Jared Goff's playing better. No, all these teams have a ton of talent. And I think it just shows you a lot. It matters where you get drafted and what the initial conversation is. Dak was a 4th-round pick. So Dak takes the league by storm in that first year. And now I think that Dak has a lot of detractors, but so many people were kind of blown away by Dak exceeding expectations that helps him out in these conversations. For Tua, right, he was like the golden boy at Alabama, right? He was the next great thing. So some people still think that's in there somewhere with Tua Tagovailoa. But for Goff, you're the number 1 overall pick. And for Jared Goff, you felt like you were a bust early on in your career. Then you were a big reason why that team didn't win a Super Bowl. But the way that he has kind of rewritten his chapter here with the Lions, it's pretty damn impressive. And I feel a lot more confident about Jared Goff winning a Super Bowl or getting to a Super Bowl in the next few years than I do with Tua Tagovailoa and I do with Dak Prescott. And it's not, Zach, these 2 quarterbacks are in the AFC because Dak plays in the NFC. Dak has everything right at his, at his fingertips that Jared Goff has. And the problem for the Dolphins is the roadblock of the Kansas City Chiefs, but the Chiefs are vulnerable this year. And the Dolphins were in one of those games, and Tua couldn't make the throws late with the bad snap, and then whatever happened with the miscommunication or the underthrow up against the Chiefs at the end of the game in Germany. So how do you rank those 3 quarterbacks Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jared Goff. And who would you feel most comfortable giving a contract extension to this offseason? For me, it is the man slinging the football around in Detroit in Jared Goff. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. 5 disappointing NFL draft picks coming up next. I'll give you my list.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I see this from Ian Rappaport, the Cleveland Browns, who just traded for Jerry Jeudy. And if you listen to this show, you know I'm not a big fan of Jerry Jeudy. I just think he is an overrated wide receiver who doesn't think his you-know-what stinks. And he believes he's like a top 10 wide receiver in the league, but he's not. However, the Browns gave up basically nothing to go acquire him. I think it's a good trade for Cleveland, but then Cleveland just did something that makes me say, don't really love it now. Like, you got the guy in your building, you improved your wide receiving room, you barely gave up nothing to get him. Why are you giving him a 3-year contract extension worth up to $58 million, and you have $41 million guaranteed? And Santa, you know me pretty well. I usually don't bitch and complain about money that other guys get, because a lot of times people freak out about the salary cap. Oh, the salary cap, the salary cap, the salary cap, and usually find a way. But this seems so unnecessary. To give this guy a $58 million contract on a 3-year contract extension, and quite frankly, he has been underwhelming and disappointing so far as an NFL wide receiver. And, you know, I did an instant reaction video to this when it first happened. I'm talking about the initial trade. And I guess it made the rounds in Cleveland. So 93, The Fan, they wanted me on to do a guest spot, which I was more than happy to do. I love that station. And Andy Roth does a great job leading that station. They have a lot of good talent on that station, too, including Ken Carman, who is a friend. But I went on that station, and the analogy I use for Jerry Jeudy is he's kind of like Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm not talking about 2024 Juju Smith-Schuster. But Juju Smith-Schuster got into the league, had Antonio Brown, and he popped off. But then once he lost Antonio Brown, he started to develop that kind of tag of, well, you're not a number 1 wide receiver, but you're also not bad enough to be a number 2 wide receiver. So I think Jerry Jeudy is someone that I don't look at him as a true bona fide number 1 wide receiver, but I can't say he's a 2. He's kind of an in-betweener where there'll be like 4 or 5 games where you're like, okay, this is the Jerry Jeudy we thought of, and this was the Jerry Jeudy we thought he was going to be coming out of Alabama. And then there's other days where it's like, this is bad Jerry Jeudy. So I kind of tab him as a 1.5 on that scale, where he's not a true 1, but he's not a 2. But isn't that crazy now with how all the wide receiver money is just going up and up and up? Oh, a guy that's not even a great number 1 wide receiver, and I can't even call him confidently number 1 wide receiver, is now, when you do it on the surface, is making $19.3 million a year. That's crazy.
And like why they would do it, like you said, why they would do it now versus doing it after the season, or even like in the middle of the season when you see him like actually play for you, right? You made this big deal for a guy who's underwhelming and underachieving.
It's not even a big deal. They give up nothing for him.
Yeah, so like
late
wait.
picks.
Yeah, just wait. I mean, he's not going anywhere. Like, if he has a monster year, I guess you're betting on him having a monster year. They must have a lot of faith he's going to have a monster year, and they're worried about losing him after the year. So give him the money now.
You know what this
is?
But
man, now he has no incentive to actually prove anything.
It's blind loyalty. That's what it is. Because Jerry Jeudy, he likes to talk a lot. And Jerry Jeudy likes to make himself out to be as if he's a great wide receiver. That's why, even though he may not have went about it the right way, Steve Smith, I loved when he tried to put him in his place on the sideline when I guess Steve Smith was doing a game this year for the NFL Network. But I think this is the Browns saying, we're taking care of you, so now you must be on your best behavior, because there's going to be a game inevitably where the targets are going to Amari Cooper over Jerry Jeudy. And if Jerry Jeudy doesn't have his contract taken care of, then Jerry Jeudy could become a malcontent where he starts to say, oh, well, I'm not getting the targets in this game, and then I'm not going to get paid, and it's going to be held against me next year in contract negotiations. I think this was one of those scenarios where Jerry Jeudy gets taken care of financially, so it's to kind of weather that storm that is inevitably going to come at one point this year when you have a number one wide receiver in Amari Cooper and a guy who thinks he's a number one in Jerry Jeudy and is younger than Amari Cooper, and he's going to expect a certain amount of targets. So that's what I think $19 million gets you these days if you're a wide receiver.
But at the end of the day, like if you want to have him prove it still, or you want that incentive for him, because right now he has no incentive. Just saying, hey, we gave you money, we trust that you're going to put the work in. Make it an incentive-laden contract, right? Say like, okay, $12 million with potential incentives to get to $19 million.
But maybe he doesn't sign it.
He has no incentive.
But he probably doesn't sign it then.
Well, then you don't get fined. Then you lose Jerry Jeudy, who's done nothing in the NFL so far.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Again, for the second straight segment, I agree with you. I'm backing your claim. I just don't understand the move.
Can you disagree with me? Can we be like, what's that show on Skip Bayless's show? What is it? Undisputed, where they just have contrived arguments and they just basically disagree to disagree. Where Skip probably walks in those production meetings and says, "Oh, I'm taking this side." Someone, "Oh, you agree with me?" Nope, take the other side.
Zach, you're an idiot. Jerry Jeudy is not only a clear-cut number one wide receiver, but he is going to be an all-pro this year. He's going to beat out Justin Jefferson. He's going to beat out Stephon Diggs. Every one of those guys is going to be looking at the dust of Jerry Jeudy, and the Browns just got a huge deal. What you're saying is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, and I can't honestly look at you in the eyes anymore.
I actually like it better when you say I'm an idiot and a moron and a dope. I do like that better.
What about jackass?
I think jackass is a word that only I could use on this show. Like, if you called me a jackass, I think we have a little fisticuffs. I think we're throwing fisticuffs. But if I call someone a jackass, I think it's said in more of a jovial way, at least when I use it.
Well, if we have fisticuffs, then I will publicly just tell you, hey, why don't you meet me somewhere privately so we can discuss this like men?
Oh, here we go. Samter going in the Ryan Clark feud. As that's so stupid, by the way.
Fake tough guy.
Well, here's the thing. I like Ryan Clark. Like, when his contract was uncertain, I exchanged a few text messages with Ryan Clark. I like his work. But now I'm out on Ryan Clark. Because Ryan Clark inserted himself into the Tiki Barber situation for people that don't know what we're talking about. Tiki then fired back and was basically like, when you were on the Giants, you were like a practice squad player pretty much. So how would you know anything that I was as a teammate? And you're on the defensive side of the ball. I'm on the offensive side of the ball. And then Greg Giannotti, who works on the same radio station as Tiki Barber, he kind of defended Tiki and then went after Ryan Clark because he knows Ryan Clark from his time in Pittsburgh, where I guess Ryan Clark didn't treat some of the media well. And now Ryan Clark is saying, I'm publicly demanding that we have a sit down between Greg Giannotti, who's on vacation on like some island right now, and Tiki Barber. I don't get why Tiki or Gio would have this sit down when Ryan Clark is the one that was responding to something that had nothing to do with him. Just stupid.
But the reality, the way Ryan Clark worded it, it sounds like Ryan Clark is intimating that he wants to fight them in a private room, not sit down without cameras. He's like, hey, how about we go into a private room? He's challenging them.
I think they want to have an open conversation, or Ryan Clark wants to have an open conversation in private, but then you shouldn't have taken your beef public. So it really makes no sense. And it's weird. I like all three of those guys, but I'll take a side here. I'm taking the side of Tiki Barber and Greg Giannotti here. It's not even close. And this is my problem with now some former athletes in the media. You like to get into the dirty side of this business of like the fighting and all that stuff, and then someone calls you like a jackass, and you lose your mind and you get all sensitive and you get all caught up in your feelings. So, anywho, I have a list that we're going to get into, and it's based off Chase Young signing with the New Orleans Saints. So Chase Young has been disappointing as an NFL pro, and I think a lot of it gets related to, and you could correlate it to, the injury that did occur with Chase Young, where he tears his ACL, and unfortunately, that pretty much has derailed his career, where there's some glimpses where he's looking like he could still be a special player, but nowhere close to what he was supposed to be. And as you may or may not know, There was a former offensive line coach, Paul Alexander, who once compared the potential of Chase Young, saying he could be the next Lawrence Taylor. And I remember saying this to Chase Young at the Heisman, and he was blown away because of what the name Lawrence Taylor means to the sport and how the way that Lawrence Taylor is remembered. So let's take a break here because we're up against it on the clock. But I wanted to just set up the Chase Young conversation where he was supposed to be the next great NFL defensive player for 10 years. It didn't work out with the Commanders. He goes to the 49ers. He was fine in the playoffs, but in the regular season when he got traded there, basically did nothing. And there was a thought that maybe he wouldn't even be active for the Super Bowl. And now you have another team signing him, and that is going to be the New Orleans Saints. So when we return, who are the 5 most disappointing NFL draft picks in your lifetime? Or the 5 most disappointing draft picks that you could recall? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Update time first. Here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flag.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career path with flexibility and great pay and benefits? Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today. Chase Young's deal with the Saints is official. However, he reportedly needs a procedure on his neck that will prevent him from starting training camp on time. Jerry Jeudy is a new home and now a new deal. Reportedly a 3-year extension from the Browns worth $58 million. $41 million of which is guaranteed, and Trent Brown reportedly meeting with the Bengals today and expected to sign a 1-year deal. The NCAA tournament tips off tonight in Dayton with the first 4. First up, a couple of number 16 seeds in Wagner and Howard. The second game tonight will feature Colorado State and Virginia, with the Cavaliers having won 7 straight before a rough final month in which they went 4 of 5. Virginia head coach Tony Bennett acknowledged that up-and-down ride and said they should be better for it now.
We had a few games early where we got blown out, and we had some late. But we always kind of bounced back, and their spirit was good, and we kept fighting and found a way to finish 3rd in the ACC and fought, and I think we improved as the season went on.
For the second straight year, Zach Edey of Purdue was a unanimous All-America selection. Joining him, UConn's Tristan Newton, Dalton Connect of Tennessee, North Carolina's R.J. Davis, and Jamal Shedd of Houston. I'm Rich Acker.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD veterans, and their families. They're members of the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week, it's Spurs super rookie Victor Wembanyama, who smashed 7 blocks in Sunday's OT win over the Nets. Wemby leads the league with 3.5 blocks per game and is currently second in odds for NBA Defensive Player of the Year. Now, I didn't know that he's second in odds for NBA Defensive Player of the Year, and it illustrates this point. Oh, he's clearly going to win Rookie of the Year. There is the no crap take of the day. And when he wins Rookie of the Year, that means a guy that you used to work with, that we now still work with, but he's just in a morning show here on CBS Sports Radio. Many of these same CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, always streaming live. YouTube.com/CBS Sports Radio is our dear friend, Andrew Perloff. He's going to have to road trip from the Big Apple here in NYC all the way down to San Antonio. That's what Perloff has to do because he didn't think Victor Wembanyama, come on, Perloff. What a stupid take this was. He didn't think Victor Wembanyama was going to win Rookie of the Year.
No, he was going Scoot Henderson, but we all kind of forgot about Chet Holmgren. So it seemed like there may have been a battle early on, but no, now Wembanyama is definitely going to win it. Perloff's not only going to have to road trip down to San Antonio, but he has to walk around the Riverwalk in San Antonio where all the restaurants are and all the players gather with a sign saying, I didn't believe in Victor Wembanyama.
Oh, so this is a payoff at some point next NBA season.
I mean, whether it's during the regular season or in the summer, whatever, he has to do it at some point.
Well, because aren't those NBA awards, they're like handed out like way after the season ends?
I think now that they're kind of done around the finals time, either right before or right after the finals.
Okay, so because they went away from that award show? Because there was a while they did the award show and it'd be like, oh, the season ended. It was like a month later. We're handing out the MVP. It was just so stupid. So Regardless, though, Perloff's going to lose that bet. Does Perloff ever win a bet on that show? I don't think there's ever a bet that Perloff wins. Everything I see is him having to do something. Whether it was like, what with the peanut butter here, his face got smashed in like a bunch of beans or something.
Barbecue sauce poured on his head. He had, Maggie had to dress in a duck suit. The two of them are just terrible gamblers. Absolutely awful gamblers.
Maybe they were getting some of the temple intel. That was rumored a few weeks ago with their basketball
since they're
team.
such bad gamblers and they're challenging us to dodgeball, I feel like we have to put something fun on the line there.
Yeah, by the way, I know we kind of buried this towards the end of the show yesterday. They really took some shots at you. That entire show. Pete the Body Bilotti couldn't wait to throw a dodgeball right at you. At first, EJ is saying he wanted smoke with me, and then he goes right after you. Perloff actually was, I think, the only one that kind of said, I could see Samter actually being a good dodgeball player. I'm not backing down. I'm different than other people. Like, people will tell you they're great at something even when they're not. I will, full disclosure, tell you when I'm not great at something, and then I'll tell you when I'm also great at something. Dodgeball, I'm a fine dodgeball player. Like, I could throw the ball with some power. I'm a big target. Like, if you can't hit me, you just suck at dodgeball, if we're being abundantly clear. But my one problem with dodgeball is just how long does it take for my arm to give out? Because when I'm throwing that ball, if it's a good-sized dodgeball, because like if it's a little dodgeball, my hand's just too big, and then it's just a disaster, and then people laugh at me when the ball is like a folly floater. But if I get a good grip on it and I'm throwing that dodgeball, I could have a cannon, but my arm has a limitation. Like, I'm the type of player, if you make a baseball analogy here, that it wouldn't surprise me if there's a little Tommy John after having about 3 innings of stellar ball and you leave the game a little bit early, and it's like, oh, that shoulder's starting to hurt a little bit.
I mean, if you were the first player ever to get Tommy John surgery from dodgeball,
I'm sure
I feel like
happened.
it would be legendary.
I'm sure it's happened.
I mean, I know a lot of people get injured playing pickleball, but dodgeball, I'm not sure if I've seen that before.
So I think we need, AC's not going to do this. I would love if AC participated. There's no way AC is going to participate. That's the problem. It's Stu, it's me, it's Samter, their show.
Do we get to pick maybe a backup for AC, like Belletti maybe? Get a little Marco Belletti, someone who fills in. I mean, I feel like...
Give me Diesel. Let's take Diesel.
No, but we need somebody who's associated with the show. Diesel's not.
Okay, how about Pat Boyle then? I think Pat would be good.
But I feel like Boyle would be connected more to that morning show because he's filled in the morning as well.
Yeah, but he's filled in the afternoons.
I mean,
and he likes us better than them, let's be real.
We could try Hess or Betcher, Carlos Ortiz, Manny Rodriguez.
Chris Hess may be a decent dodgeball player. Ryan Botcher, I cannot see him being a good dodgeball player. And Carlos Ortiz, I think Carlos is here
He's a former military man.
Yeah, but I think he's here for a good time. I don't know how he would be in the dodgeball department. I think he's just there to kind of have like a little social environment. Now, Chris Hess looks afraid to even turn on the microphone and say something right here. He just raised his hand to speak. What am I, a teacher?
No, he wasn't raising his hand to speak. He was raising his hand to put his name in the ring that he wanted to be part, to be included. He didn't want to jump on mic and say, hey, I want to be there. He just raised his hand like, hey, I'm available. Now, I just got a very interesting text message.
From who?
From somebody associated with this network.
Is it Bill Ryder?
Who said, you guys would be huge dogs to Ryder than you in dodgeball. Same for M&P. Bill Ryder laying down the gauntlet, saying that we would not only be dogs to M&P, but dogs to him and D-Cell and Ryder than you. With Bogish on the mic. Are you kidding me?
Well, Bogish.
We would blow Ryder than you out of the water. I love Bill, but we would just crush them.
Let's be real. So I don't think Bogish would be a good dodgeball player. D-Cell, I think, would be elite. I mean elite. I think D-Cell's probably an underrated athlete here. Bill, here would be my question to Bill. If Bill is sober, I don't think Bill Ryder's good at dodgeball. But if you give Bill a little tequila, a little vodka, I think Bill Ryder would be an assassin. That's my you give Bill a little alcohol, you get the muscles going. You get like in golf, swing juice, they call it, whatever it be for dodgeball. You just give Bill a little taste of some tequila. I do think Bill Ryder would be great.
I'll say this. I do know for sure that Bill is a high-level tennis player. Right?
Oh, yeah, 'cause he's rich.
very good at yeah. So like
He's
he'd
a
be
rich
really
snob.
good in like those little floofy sports, like pickleball. He'd be good at.
He
tennis.
hangs around in L.A. with
maybe a
Jim
little
Rome
golf.
and Colin Coward. Oh, what country club are we going to today, gentlemen?
But you know what, Bill? When we get into these high octane contact sports like dodgeball, I'm taking you out. Me and Bill one-on-one. It's going to be like, that true dodgeball movie. It's going to be Ben Stiller versus Vince Vaughn. I'm Vince Vaughn. I'm going to put that blindfold on. Me and Bill are going to have a showdown, and I'm taking him down. I'm calling you right now. Me and Bill one-on-one. I'm taking him out.
Do you remember who was it? Was it Ben Stiller is in that movie,
Yeah,
Dodgeball?
yeah.
Remember at the end when he becomes a fat slob?
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, that could be me by the end of this dodgeball
Most
game.
underrated character in that movie is Jason Bateman playing the super high stoner dodgeball retired athlete. He's absolutely hilarious, being like the analyst on the broadcast.
And I got to be careful how I say this because I don't want to get any hot water. The network's been enough hot water when we comment about women. If you are following that story, how do I say it? Who's the lady in dodgeball?
That's Ben Stiller's wife.
Yeah, but the way
forget
that
her
she's
name.
perceived, whatever her name is in
Yes.
that in that show. No, I'm not talking about the blonde in dodgeball. I'm talking about the lady that's on the other team.
The one who's she's meant to be ugly.
Chris
but,
Hess knows the answer.
Friend Stelanoskevich Davidovitz
Yes.
Yeah.
from Romanovia.
Yeah. So there you go. Anyway, real quickly. So I'm down to do this dodgeball thing. Like Bill's just gonna run his mouth and he's gonna yap about dodgeball. Bill, the time we get Bill to come to New York and actually hang out and want to associate with us, the network will be celebrating our 20th anniversary.
No, Bill comes and Bill hangs and
I'm
Bill will
teasing
join for
here.
a whiskey or two. However, I don't think Bill was trained by the people who trained me in dodgeball. Patches O'Houlihan himself gave me the 5 most important things to know about dodgeball: dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge.
If you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball.
I can dodge the hell of a wrench, baby.
That would be fun.
Screwdrivers might be tougher though.
That is how we would get you ready for dodgeball, Samter. I would just have freedom to throw a wrench at you all throughout the lead up to this show and even afterwards. I think this is a good proposition. But here's the thing. Bill comes off here like Ryan Clark. He's inserting himself into a fight that he wasn't called out in originally. So I think Bill should just worry about joining our team. And I know we'll make this for NBA terms for Bill.
Ooh.
We will recruit you to join the super team.
Interesting.
And then we'll go up against Maggie and Perloff because we're going to need more people.
Yeah.
And hey, I would be fine being the Dwayne Wade of this operation, and Bill could come in and be LeBron since he's a big dodgeball player. And you could be like Chris Bosh.
I'm
like
Eric
half the
Spoelstra.
star.
I'll be Spoelstra.
Okay.
I'll just instruct you guys what to do.
That makes sense because Bill would probably want to try to get you fired.
Maybe I'll be Ray Allen. Kind of like hide in the corner, and then out of nowhere, I'm just going to bury the dagger.
Well, you would fit Ray Allen because he was a Celtic. You were originally with Maggie and Perloff, and now you're with us. So it would be like you joining the Miami Heat.
There you go.
So that would work. I am down to
I mean,
participate.
you're diving really deep inside of this right now.
Yeah, I'm giving you good analogies here. I will be down to participate in dodgeball up against the morning show. I'm 100% in. Whenever they want to do it, I am down, and I will. We will not hold back. We will have fun. But I was just surprised. Out of all the people that were calling us out, it was EJ. Like, I didn't think EJ was going to start this dodgeball beef between the morning show and then us here in the afternoons. I was just trying to mind our own business. They started that conversation talking about paintball, by the way. And I just went paintballing on a bachelor party I was on. That was like 4 weeks ago. It was the first bachelor party.
Was this Orlando?
Yeah. The welt that I had on my stomach from getting hit with the paintball
Yeah, those are no joke.
finally just went away last week. It took almost 3.5 weeks for this welt to go away. Oh, that was no fun. No fun whatsoever. So I'm down. Dodgeball. Let's do it. All righty. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
Weren't we supposed to talk about draft disappointments or something?
Yeah, the last
Dodgeball's way more fun.
The last 2 segments we were supposed to talk about draft disappointments. So I teased it going to the 3:20 break. I teased it going to the 3:40 break. Now I will tease it once again going to the 3:55 break. Coming up next on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Find out which show, also on our network, that will beat the crap out of. And we're going to threaten or we're going to challenge. No, I'm just kidding. We will do a little 5 NFL draft picks that disappointed you in your lifetime. You can always follow us on social media at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, Instagram and Twitter. And you could always give us a buzz, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I can't wait to create a superhuman being with Samter in dodgeball when I just hoist Samter on my shoulders and we go full steam and you just have Samter pelting dodgeballs at Andrew Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break.
All righty, rocking and rolling. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. This time of the year, you always see this guy's legendary shot. I think they'll never stop playing it. Of course, he is Christian Laettner, and he's brought to us today on behalf of DraftKings, and he's here to talk about the NCAA tournament. Christian, appreciate the time. Thanks so much, and how are you?
My pleasure, Zach. I'm doing great. I'm just getting over a cold, but doing great here in Florida.
Well, we actually had Jamal Mashburn in studio last week, and we were talking about the whole moment up against Kentucky, the shot, Duke and Kentucky, and obviously a play that will live forever. All these years later, and you still see it replayed this time of the year over and over again. What's the memory for that iconic moment for you?
The memory is, thank God Mashburn wasn't out there. He fouled out, and I know he regrets it, and he wished he could have, maybe not fouled one or two times so he could be out there. But what a player he was. I think he was just a sophomore, that year during that game, and he went on, and I played against him so many times in the NBA. Just an unbelievable offensive player, really hard to stop, and I loved every time I played against them. The memories are just too many to mention. And the fact that it's on ESPN every March, and, the 30 for 30, I hate Christian Laettner, and they talk about it in such depth. It just brings back great memories. I get goosebumps every time talking about it, thinking about it. I have to force myself not to watch the show because I love the show so much.
It's so weird. All these years later, this is something that everyone brings up to you, and you wonder if there's any new components or any untold stories. I saw Rick Pitino. Rick Pitino was on with Pardon My Take, and Coach Pitino was basically saying the one regret he still has to this day is that right before his team went out onto the court, they said, whatever you do, don't foul Laettner. How about them? Because everyone talks about not having a guy on the ball, but them not really contesting the catch on that pass that was thrown to you.
Well, that's just what a coach has to say that. Every coach, if you put them in that scenario 1,000 times, every coach is going to say, don't foul the shot because we don't want to lose with no time on the clock and the kid can make free throws to win the game. So he did not make a mistake in that regard. He might have made a little mistake by not having someone on Grant Hill to contest the pass a little bit. And yes, the biggest mistake is, like you said, not contesting the catch. If they would have had someone flying at the ball right before I caught it, behind me, in front of me, trying to distract me during the catch, that might have made a big difference. But you can't blame him for saying don't foul Laettner, because you should say that. Any coach that's a decent coach has to say that in that scenario.
Yeah, and he kind of thought, because when he said that, even though it's the right thing to say, it made his players get a little timid in the moment and kind of get afraid to even be within like 5 feet of you or something like that.
Yes, and it's been 30 years, and I coach nowadays. I've been coaching for the last 10 years. And if I find my team or my players in that situation, the last thing I say to them is don't foul. But right before then, I say, fly at the catch, fly at the ball, try to distract the kid a little bit. If you can deflect it, tip the pass. And yes, it might have made the kids a little timid, play the play a little softer than they should have. But hindsight's 2020, and thank good they did get a little timid in that regard.
Worked out A-okay for you guys in the Duke program. Christian Laettner here with us. What are the iconic buzzer beaters that you really love, since you have such an iconic one? I remember the Chris Jenkins shot for Villanova a few years ago to take down UNC. Jalen Suggs, even though they didn't win it, to put them in the national championship game. What are the moments for you that have really impressed you, since a lot of people argue your buzzer beater and that moment's number one on the list?
Well, the Jenkins one is incredible because that was for the national championship game, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So, that's got to be the biggest one. And when that happened, I went on Twitter or X and immediately said something like, I'm passing the crown to you. And that got a lot of feedback. But since then, I'm not on Twitter or X at all. I try to stay away from that social media stuff. But You know, I think NC State and Lorenzo Charles, because that's like one of the first ones I remember when I was young. So, but they're all incredible. The kid from Valparaiso, I don't remember his name, but every one of them that you see is just incredible. And that's what makes March Madness so great. And that's why it's just going to be crazy starting today. Aren't the play-in games today?
Yep. Later today.
I mean, everything moves so fast starting today. So I don't watch college basketball religiously, nowadays, but from today moving forward, I'm going to be watching every day because the round of 32 and the round of 16 happens really quick.
Christian Laettner here with us. You know what it's like to win back-to-back championships. UConn, just like how you guys did, is trying to do that, and they have a better team here the second go-around, so I don't think anything phases them. How about the pressure of trying to win back-to-back tournaments?
Well, it is hard. I'll tell you that because everyone's gunning for you. They're going to give you their best game. But I'm impressed with UConn and Danny Hurley. The fact that he gets some of his kids to stay and he has some juniors and seniors on their team in today's game where the transfer portal and NIL and people can leave and people can transfer and go to the NBA. I'm impressed with the job that he does in terms of getting some of his kids to stay. Now, the thing I like the best about UConn and the thing that I'm impressed the most with Danny Hurley and the job that he's doing there is how slow his team plays and how simple and easy they make the game. They pass ahead. Everything is not just dribbling the ball a million miles an hour. They simply pass the ball ahead. They pass it down the court. They slow down at the right times. They catch and face. I love the speed of their play. They're fast when they should be, and they slow down when they should be. I love the way they play. I love the way they play the game.
And I think right now, because you know this with how it is with one and dones and the transfer portal and NIL, it's tough for players now to be the face of the sport. So forever in college basketball, or at least the last 15, 20 years, it felt like Coach K was the coach of the sport. Now with him in retirement, it seems like Danny Hurley has taken over the sport, getting that championship last year, and now being that polarizing person where, like you, 50% of the people love you and then 50% of the people hate you.
Yeah, he's definitely, becoming the face of college basketball, and that's what happens when you have so much success. And not in my eyes. I love Tom Brady, and I always wanted Tom Brady to win. And if Danny Hurley keeps doing good, I'm going to want him to continue to win. Sometimes I pull for the winner. Sometimes I pull for the underdog. But I'm just impressed with how he gets his team to play. I love watching them play. That Hurley family, they know some good basketball. And it all starts with their dad, Bob Sr.
Sure.
And we know Bobby Jr. can play the game and coach the game. And it's good to see them continuing to have success.
One of some of my favorite memories when I was at Temple and you had Bobby and Danny on the same staff, I think for one season at URI. And I think URI and Temple was in the same conference. There was like no one at this Temple basketball game. Hearing those two guys on the sidelines, I say this in a respectful way too, because I love this from coaches. Man, maniacs, just yellers, and absolutely awesome to see both of those guys on the same staff all those years ago.
Basketball is a beautiful game when it's played the right way and coached the right way. And sometimes I get worried about the fact that coaches don't stay somewhere for like 5-10 years so they can get their system established. And then we know the players don't stay anymore. The players transfer or the players go to the NBA. And I mean, even Duke, they're just so young. And I think back to how much better I was my junior and senior year compared to my freshman year. It takes time to get a system under your belt and to play the right way. And it takes coaches staying in one institution for years and years and years. And the players got to stay also.
And there's really no patience anymore. Like, I don't think John Shire's in any danger of losing his job. but you do have some that are like, okay, where is Duke basketball now going? What are your thoughts on what John has been able to do the last 2 years since replacing Coach K?
Well, it's just the sign of the times. And, with everything being so quick and immediate on your phone and social media, and people want results right away. And if John Shire and Duke isn't doing great every game, people lose their patience. But I'm here to tell everyone and tell the world that it takes a while for your principles, your philosophy, the way you expect the game to be played offensively, defensively. It takes a while for it to get established. And that's why I don't love the transfer portal. I don't love when coaches leave and go to a different school and the kids transfer and go to the NBA too early. And I wish people would be a little more patient and stick around and give the system a chance to work.
And I don't fault the players for making money, right? But you always wonder when you're trying to make money and you're chasing that bag, if you're chasing it for the right reasons too.
Well, that's what the pros is for. You're supposed to work hard and practice on the court more than anyone else and put your blood, sweat, and tears on it. So at the end of all that work, you can get paid and make some money. So the NIL thing, man, it just changes everything. And the horse is out of the barn a little bit. And I don't know if they can walk it back and change things a little bit. But the NIL is something that has to be handled the right way. And I mean, even I would be pursuing different things if I was in college now and millions of dollars are coming in through NIL. I mean, it just changes the whole picture.
Wrapping up with Christian Laettner, who joins us today on behalf of DraftKings, and he's here to talk about the NCAA tournament. How about Kyle Filipowski? What have been your impressions of Duke's big man?
He's a great player. He's another kid that I hope he stays at Duke another year. I don't know if that's going to happen. I just filled out my bracket, and I'm sorry to say I don't have Duke going to the Final Four. I was just on another show, and the guy pointed out that Christian, you picked all number 1 seeds, so I have UConn, Houston, Carolina, and Purdue going to the Final Four. Duke's going to run across Houston, and I think Houston's going to be playing with a vengeance because they got beat in their conference this past weekend. Houston also got out of the tournament last year a little early, so I really like Houston. They play hard. They're very well coached. They're great on the defensive end, and I'm picking Houston to win it all. And the reason is because when I was a junior, I lost in my conference championship against Carolina. We lost by 20 points. But then we went on and won 6 games in a row and were able to get our first championship my junior year. So I'm picking Houston to win it all this year.
Last 2 things I'll ask you. We started off with the shot and how everyone keeps on talking about that. Are you surprised still, all these years later, how many people talk about Isaiah Thomas not getting on the dream team? Because that pops up at least a few times every year, and a lot of times it's coming from Isaiah.
No, I'm not surprised about it, but that's because there's a lot of forums and a lot of platforms where people have to have stuff to talk about. Everyone has a podcast and everyone has a show, and they got to talk about something, and there's just so many subjects, and it's not a bad subject to talk about. I was only lucky and blessed enough to be on that dream team because they chose to have one college player on the team. If it was reversed and they would have had a 12th NBA player, I'm sure Isaiah would have been on that team or someone else.
Well, Christian, hey, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. Once again, Christian Laettner is here today on behalf of DraftKings. Christian, thanks a bunch.
Zach, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
The Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Ack, let me just quickly ask you, because I feel like whenever there's a big moment in sports history, you could recall it just so vividly. Where were you the night Laettner hits the shot up against Kentucky?
At home, my friend and his band were playing, at the bitter end, not too far from our studio where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Saturday night, obviously. Len Elmore's birthday, and Len Elmore was calling the game. And I'm watching this game, and I remember at some point, I don't remember like it was late first or maybe early second. It's like a 12-point game. But you kind of have a feeling like Kentucky's kind of like hanging around, and obviously the 3-point shot wasn't as prevalent as it is now. I mean, people took it, they could hit it, but it wasn't like it is. It's not like you can get back into the game so easily now. But you kind of get a sense that they're kind of like hanging around, like Duke can't put them away, but it's still a comfortable lead, and Kentucky's inching back, and like I can't recall exactly like at one point, but I'm thinking to myself, now you got yourself a game. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere here.
What was for dinner, Ack?
That I don't remember, but I do remember it was a day like it is today almost.
Chilly.
It was chilly day, yeah, and at least in the New York area it was. And I'm and thankfully my friend was playing late that night, and because I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not. And now I did not know how the game was going to turn out.
Yeah.
But it became the second half really became a heavyweight fight, and Kentucky just did not back down. And for as great as Jamal Mashburn, was and meant to that team, he was the star on that team. And you had Duke with Laettner and Hurley and Grant Hill. I mean they were really. But here was Kentucky somehow going toe to toe with them. And hitting big shots left and right. It was a remarkable game to watch. It really was.
It's funny the way that you say that, because there's always like those moments where you go, okay, imagine if I missed a game like that. Like you weren't going to leave. There is one game in particular.
I almost did.
Did you? Okay.
I almost did, but you kind of let's just put it this way, the comeback started at the right time. Maybe another 5 minutes later I might have been gone. But I said to myself, I'm not leaving now.
So the game for me that I remember leaving, like I wasn't in the stadium, but leaving where I was watching, was the Auburn-Alabama kick six.
I was either in the studio, Last Eye on College Football show of our first year.
A buddy of mine's girlfriend that he eventually ended up marrying, and now they have a beautiful baby boy. It was the first time we were meeting her, and we were supposed to go out to this Chinese restaurant, and we were just like delaying. I'm like, I can't go. And then eventually I was just like, all right, I'm going to leave.
Because you kind of figured Alabama's going to win this game.
I'll follow the rest of my phone. And then I sit down to watch whatever the night game was that night. And I'm like, what the heck? What?
Well,
Kick six,
the funny thing about that game, I remember the end of that vividly, is, Alabama, the one fatal flaw that year of the Crimson Tide, their special teams were not great. Just in the kicking area.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think they had 2 kickers, if I'm not mistaken, and they called timeout right before that. And I was like, this is probably going to overtime because, Alabama's kicking this is no gimme. It's not an easy kick. Likelihood going to go. And you see Chris Davis is camped out under the goalpost. You're like, all right, and sure enough, it's short, and he gets it. And I think probably by the time he got to the 15-yard line, I go, whoa.
There he goes.
Because it's all chaos at that point. And the other thing is, the only guys he has to beat at that point are the slower offensive linemen. So you're like,
the Zach Gelbs of the world.
He's got a shot here, and it's we're kind of watching like, okay, short guy, he's got it, okay, and I'm like, whoa, and sure enough, like, hey,
Romo, wait a second, Jim,
and we're, part of you can't help but get caught up in it, and even though we're not rooting on the year, but deep down you're like, go, and to me more so than the play itself was just, and it was really a great thing, and I don't remember who directed that game for CBS, but they signed
the camera
off
shots.
The shot of everybody on the field afterwards, and it was such a joyful celebration that there was no chaos, it was no people trampling over it was just people on the field.
I got to take a break, but I have a summer segment idea when we don't have much
Oh.
content. I think we just replay a moment in history and
There you
just
go.
have Ack. Where were you? What were you doing? And just recall everything, because
That was it.
there's no memory like the memory
So-
that Richard Ackerman does have. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio, up to time. Here he is, the man that never forgets anything, the Ack Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
That's what I did last week. The Broncos weren't going to pay Jerry Jeudy, but the Browns are. He reportedly gets a 3-year deal worth a total of $58 million and $41 million guaranteed. Trent Brown is now a Cincinnati Bengal after visiting today. He sticks around for a 1-year deal. Chase Young is a new team, but won't start training camp on time. The newest Saint will undergo a procedure on his neck after agreeing to a 1-year, $13 million guaranteed deal. March Madness tips off tonight with the first 4. And first up will be Howard and Wagner. The Seahawks are one of those teams that bumped a bigger school. The Northeast Conference champs finished 7-9 and were 6th. And despite having only 7 healthy players, they were able to make the tournament, while the Bison were the MEAC champs after going 18-16. Head coach Kenny Blakeney played with Christian Laettner, won a championship at Duke, and tried to impart the magnitude of this experience.
You just want to be here, and being here means something. And it's I get chills in my, in my arms. Like it's a big deal to have a chance to compete at this level.
The second part of the doubleheader features Colorado State and Virginia. I'm Rich Ecker.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio on a Tuesday. This portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. Daniel Jeremiah released his latest mock draft. And when you looked at the first 3 picks, kind of resembled what he said to us last week, which was Caleb Williams going to go number 1, and he's still rocking and rolling with Drake May in at number 2 to the Commanders. And then he was clear to us when he joined us on the air that the Patriots will not trade the pick at 3. And I get the best of both worlds here because I want the Patriots to keep the pick and either take a quarterback or take Marvin Harrison Jr., and the quarterback I want is Jaden Daniels over Drake May. Well, Jeremiah, I hope he's running the front office of the Commanders so they could draft Drake May, and the Patriots end up getting Jaden Daniels in his latest mock draft in at number 3. Now, here's the one that I think becomes very intriguing, and I hope it plays out this way with Williams goes 1 to the Bears, and that's a lock. Then May going 2 and Daniels going 3 to the Patriots. In at number 4 are the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals could do a few different things. They could take who they think is the best non-quarterback available. That's a playmaker, which is going to be a wide receiver. So they probably draft Marvin Harrison Jr. there. If you want to make the case for Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze, you can. But you could easily make the case that Arizona should take a wide receiver, pair him up with Kyler Murray, and try to get the most out of Kyler Murray, who's under contract. But then you could also say, trade the pick. Because you could have a team that's trying to jump the Giants to go get the 4th overall pick in the draft, to go get that next quarterback off the board, which the assumption is it's going to be J.J. McCarthy. So I would not fault Arizona for taking Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's the best player pound for pound in this draft. And then also would not fault them for trading the pick. But if you trade a team like Jeremiah has them mocked to the Minnesota Vikings, you then fall all the way down to 11, where maybe then you don't get one of those wide receivers. Because I got to think in the top 10, you're going to see Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Roma Dunze all be selected. So you could get future draft capital and you could get multiple first-round picks, like a team, in the Vikings position that's trying to go from 11 to 4. So I understand that, but then you pass up on the immediacy of trying to turn your franchise around as quick as possible and getting the most out of Kyler Murray with a wide receiver this year that is supposed to be elite and game-changing like a Marvin Harrison Jr. So Daniel Jeremiah has the Vikings moving up from 11 to 4 and then taking J.J. McCarthy. Santa, let me ask you this real quickly. Because about a month and a half ago, I would say 4 quarterbacks go in the first round. And I thought the 4 quarterbacks would be the 4 that were just mentioned. Even though I have Michael Penix Jr. ranked in front of J.J. McCarthy, I had the foresight to think that McCarthy was going to be a first rounder, even though I like Penix better than McCarthy. So those 4 are definitely going in the first round. Williams will be 1. Drake May or Jaden Daniels will be 2, and probably another one will be 3. Whichever one doesn't go 2, then the other one will be 3. McCarthy's definitely, the longest he will fall is to 6 to the Giants, it feels like. So it's now a lock 4 quarterbacks to go in the first round. But how likely do you think it is that we're going to see 4 quarterbacks go in the first 4 picks of this draft? Because it does feel like it's going to be, whether the teams stay there or not, quarterback, 1, 2, 3. Arizona really becomes the most intriguing team of this draft. Now, the Patriots, I guess, could trade, but then someone's going to take a quarterback either way. Arizona becomes really intriguing because even if the Patriots trade the pick or not and someone goes and gets a quarterback, there's still going to be another quarterback that's perceived to be a top 6 pick in this draft that's going to be sitting there in at number 4, and I can't wait to see what Arizona does.
I would be disappointed for both teams, whether it's the Vikings and the Cardinals, to move up to 4. If the Vikings are going to give up 2 first-round picks, that new number 23, 24, whatever it is that they just got from the Texans.
23, yeah.
If they're going to give that up to move up 7 spots to get the 4th best quarterback in this draft.
But they're going to because they have no other plan. Their plan is through the draft.
Right. So
they either love Drake May with the McCown connection, or they love McCarthy. They're going to go get one of those guys.
Right. So my point is, like, if you can get May or Daniels at 2 or 3, or maybe they fall and you get them at 4 for whatever reason, fine. But to move up, unless you really, really love J.J. McCarthy, to move up to number 4 to get the 4th best quarterback feels desperate. And the Cardinals, if you move back to 11 and lose out on one of those 3 amazing receivers, that's a mistake.
So you hate it on both sides?
Both sides, I don't like it.
Yeah. I will still say it will be quarterback, 1, 2, 3. I'm starting to lean. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll see what the Giants do if they'll pull the trigger on a QB in at 6.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All right, it's Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. The Jets have made an off-season signing. We know over the weekend on Friday evening they signed Tyron Smith, who is still a very good player. The problem just is his availability, and there is going to be a stretch this season when he's unavailable because of injuries. The Jets are also signing another player who has potential, who is a good player when healthy. The problem is we always have to say when he's healthy. Former Chargers wide receiver, this is breaking news right now, according to Ian Rappaport, Mike Williams is signing with the Jets on a one-year deal worth up to $15 million, and it's another weapon for Aaron Rodgers, and he visited there today. I don't know if you saw this story. There was a Jet fan who I guess is also like a social media kind of influencer. Is that the right way to say it? Content creator? However you want to word it. He sent a pork roll to the Jets facility for Mike Williams. Like he went on Uber Eats and scheduled a pork roll delivery for Mike Williams, and the Jets tweeted it out, hey, we got the order. So I don't know if Mike Williams had a few bites of the pork roll, cheddar ham, however you want to call it. But that was enough to sweeten the pot a little bit. Also a one-year deal worth up to $15 million to get Mike Williams to land with the Jets. See, the Jets, Santer's not going to like this because even though he puts up this front, he is a Chiefs fan. He's still down deep as a Jet fan.
You doubt me. I'm Chiefs Kingdom all the way.
Yeah, until we see, like if I didn't say that right there and I had your reaction, we would hear the excitement that you had over this. And that would tell me all I need to know. The Jets are making moves this year where on the surface it makes it look like they're better. Like the fact that Mike Williams is now their number 2 wide receiver makes them better. The fact that they got Tyron Smith in their offensive line makes them better. But then what happens when Tyron Smith is hurt? What happens when Mike Williams gets hurt? Because these guys miss a lot of games. So this is a make or break year for the Jets, and we know the protection and getting more weapons around Aaron Rodgers is so important. So yes, it's better to have these guys than to not have them, but I don't think it's that far-fetched. 6 games into the season, you could be saying, holy crap, Tyron Smith got hurt, and now you're back to where you were a year ago. Or Mike Williams gets hurt, and then it's like, oh, Alan Lazar, if he's still on this team, is back to being the second wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. So I almost feel as if the Jets are making moves that will elicit excitement from the fan base, but there is still like a 25% of me, and I'm not a Jet fan, but 25% of me that's just really skeptical with what the Jets are doing because it's a fix, but will it be a quick fix? And then the injuries pop up, and then it's like, oh, well, what progress did you really make from one season to the next? So that's what concerns me here, Samter, with the New York Jets and what they're trying to do. And they sit at the draft at 10, and it's like you still have that conversation. Do you take a offensive lineman as some insurance? Because Tyron Smith is not a long-term answer, and then if he gets hurt, boom, you could plug in a left tackle for the future or something like that.
Yeah, I think the Jets are in an interesting position. I mean, they might be lining themselves up. I was just looking at the Mel Kiper mock draft. He has the Jets taking Brock Bowers 10. So I guess it kind of sets up well if the Jets covered their 3 areas of need on offense, tackle, wide receiver. Again, I don't know if Tyron Smith or Mike Williams can stay healthy because they never do. But if they're comfortable with that, they can go Brock Bowers with number 10. And now Aaron Rodgers has a number 1 wide receiver, a good number 2 who can stay healthy potentially. He's got 2 bookend tackles. He's got a first-round pick guard, a second-round pick center coming into his second year in Tippmann. And then you've got Brock Bowers, and then obviously that great run game behind it. So, with Breece Hall, it's lining up. If these guys can stay healthy with that Jets defense, and if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, health is the picture for the Jets. But with that defense and like the guys they brought in on like these short-term prove-it deals, these guys who are going to want to try to stay healthy so they can get this big contract. I mean, I'm not saying
You're
Super Bowl, but I'm saying that the Chiefs might have, my Chiefs might have a little bit of a challenge.
The Jets aren't anywhere close to being the biggest contender to the Chiefs in the AFC. The Jets are the team, and they do this every year, and it just shows your roots and how you were raised and where your fandom is. The Jets are the car that's in the lot, and it's like, oh, we got a great deal. Oh, this great old car. It looks great, and you think you're getting a great car, and then you drive it away from the lot. You drive it away from the dealership, and you get in your driveway. For a week or 2, it drives nicely, maybe even a month. And then a month later, there's a light that pops on. And then you realize you have a faulty engine as well. If there's a way for something to go wrong, the Jets will find a way for something to go wrong. It's just the reality of the situation. You want to tell me the Jets are a playoff team? Okay. I can't even guarantee that. But the Bengals are still a much bigger threat to Kansas City than the Jets. Like, I know you're just making that sound effect to try to get me riled up. It's not going to work today. All right? It's not even close. The Bengals have actually accomplished some things. The Jets are just selling you off hope. Heck, I still trust the Bills more than the Jets.
What?
Yeah, because their quarterback got hurt.
So do the Jets.
And the Bengals. Why am I even arguing this with you? Like, seriously, you know Jamar Chase. They still have T. Higgins for now. And that team, they're the only team that's actually put a dent into Kansas City when they beat them 3 times in a row and won one of those AFC championship games. Like, the Jets right now, you can make a case they win their division. I'll still trust the Buffalo Bills more than the Jets, and I'll still trust the Miami Dolphins more than the Jets. You know me. I don't trust the Miami Dolphins all that much with the way that I opened up this show.
The Miami Dolphins lost like half their defense. And
I'm well aware. And you got Chubb coming off an injury, Phillips coming off an injury.
Yeah.
But come on. The Jets are one injury away from this offensive line going right back to where it was a year ago, and that's being a bleep show. And every year they tell you how much they fixed the offensive line, and Joe Douglas has never fixed the offensive line. I'm not saying you shouldn't make these moves, but the Texans I trust more than the Jets entering this year with what C.J. Stroud's done. They got your guy Danielle Hunter to complement Will Anderson Jr. as well. They traded for Joe Mixon. The Jets are a wild card team. I know they could win the division maybe, but I think the Jets, they could be a wild card team, and I think their apex is just winning a playoff game. Rodgers couldn't get it done in the NFC. So now Rodgers in a tougher conference is going to get it done in the AFC coming off an Achilles injury. I'm just not buying what the Jets are trying to sell.
Hey, he's not running for VP. We know that for sure. His focus is fully on football at this point. He's going all in, baby. He's not going to work his butt off to come back from an Achilles injury just to kind of, mess around and lollygag all over the field.
I'm not saying they're messing around.
Listen to this offense. Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, potentially Brock Bowers, Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, Elijah Vera Tucker, Tippmann at the center. The second-round centers. Centers don't go in the second round unless they're really, really good.
Does that
and
sound
then you
like
got
a Super
Sauce
Bowl team?
Gardner. And you got Quincy Williams and Quinnen Williams. You got McDonald. And you've got Jermaine Johnson. I mean, they got talent everywhere.
Can you just stop?
They've got talent
just
everywhere.
admit it. You put up this front with the Kansas City Chiefs nonsense. You're still a Jets homer.
John Franklin Myers. They just added Javon Kinlaw.
And you're going to slobber over Michael Clemens? Are you going to slobber Michael Clemens walking in to training camp to report once again with the shirt off and how it's the greatest thing in the world?
And most importantly, they just re-signed Thomas Morstead, the punter.
Stop.
I mean, come on now.
Yeah. Stop. What do you think the Jets were going to do last year? What did you think they were going to do? I'm just asking. Heading into the season.
I thought the Jets were 10-7, 11-6, depending on Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm. And he got hurt, which sucks.
Well, yeah. And 4 plays into it, I realized the football gods hated me and the Jets, so I stopped liking them.
So now the football gods a year later are all of a sudden going to start liking you.
You know what? After what they did last year, they've been laughing at us for, since 1969 they've been laughing at us. So,
at us? I thought you were a Chiefs fan.
Well, I was an us until this happened. They were laughing at us for all of my life, and then they pulled this move last year, and I feel like the football guys is like, all right, now we're even. Broadway Joe, you guaranteed a Super Bowl. We injured your star quarterback after 4 plays and embarrassed you on national television after you ran out with an American flag, and the hope was higher than it's ever been in the Meadowlands for your gangrene.
Oh, boy.
We're even. Football gods, we're even.
Okay. I'm telling you. You actually think the Jets can get to a Super Bowl this year?
If they stay healthy.
You're delusional.
If they stay healthy, this team rivals any team on a talent level.
Oh, are you high?
On a talent level.
They don't have more talent than the 49ers. They don't have more talent than the Eagles.
They rival or at least can be in the conversation. Garrett Wilson is an all-pro caliber wide receiver. Tyron Smith was the second-ranked tackle last year. Morgan Moses, 10th.
Healthy.
Elijah Vera Tucker was a first-round guard.
You don't know
Joe
crap
Tippmann
about
was a
Morgan
second-round
Moses.
center.
Give me a
Aaron
break.
Rodgers is a future Hall of Famer. Breece Hall was going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year before he got hurt. If they bring Brock Bowers in, he's going to be an elite-level tight end.
Time out. I'm not saying you guys are dreadful. You guys have a good team. But for you to sit up here and say they have more talent, they could rival any team in the NFL from a talent standpoint? Give me a break.
You look on the defense, John Franklin Myers, Javon Kinlaw, Quinnen Williams, Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, all first-round picks. Quincy Williams, C.J. Mosley, all-pro. Sauce Gardner, the best corner in the NFL. DJ Reed,
and saying
who's
the
a top 5 PFF corner.
Stop. Just stop. This is a good team.
Okay.
But they're not a top 5 talented roster in the NFL.
I disagree.
Give me a break.
I disagree. If they stay healthy.
You could say you disagree. You're wrong.
Okay.
You flat out wrong.
I just reeled off all pro after all pro and PFF top 5 grades all up and down that roster. You can argue all you want. The facts speak for themselves.
Fake news, Samter. Jeez.
All right.
There's a different. This is my biggest.
I'm not saying they're a top 5 team.
This is my biggest flaw. Stop talking for a second. This is my biggest flaw. People say good rosters are great rosters. Remember when the Jets last year said they were going to be the 85 Bears defense? How'd that work? They were a good defense, not a great defense. Come on. The Jets have a good team on paper, but the idea that you think they're anywhere in the same class as teams like the 49ers or the Philadelphia Eagles, even the Detroit Lions, I'm just going in the NFC, and then you have the AFC. The Bengals have a better roster. The Chiefs have a better roster. I know that the Chiefs don't have these great playmakers, but they have Patrick Mahomes, and their defense, that's a great defense in Kansas City. That defense just won them a Super Bowl. All righty? Let's pump the brakes on the Jets' delirious talk already. But I will say I'll give you an updated top 10 mock draft with all this stuff. Williams won to the Bears. I think Daniel Jeremiah knows something. I don't know why I'm going to trust Daniel Jeremiah here. Drake May to the Commanders 2. Patriots snag Jaden Daniels 3. I like what Daniel Jeremiah said. McCarthy going 4 to the Vikings. I think there's going to be a trade there, and we're going to see quarterback, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then this is where we get interesting. Because you have a team then like the Chargers who thought they were going to get the second or third wide receiver, probably the second wide receiver. Now they're sitting there at 5, and you could get Jim Harbaugh, the former Michigan coach, drafting the Ohio State legendary wide receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr. In at number 6, the Giants are then there. I don't think they're taking Michael Penix Jr. at 6. I think the Vikings jumped them to take a quarterback, and then the Giants end up taking a playmaker. And I'm going to say where there's smoke, there's fire with Malik Neighbors. Like a month ago, I think it would have been a closer conversation, Neighbors or Odunze. Personally, I like Odunze better. But now you have some people saying Neighbors could usurp Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't buy that. I think the Giants end up taking Malik Neighbors at 6. Then in at number 7, I'm going to have the first offensive lineman go off the board. And that's going to be Tennessee taking Joe Alt. Then you have the Falcons, who have a ton of playmakers. They can land Rome Odunze in at 8. Bears get the first defensive player off the board, so you get Williams, and you then followed up with Dallas Turner in at 9. And then at 10, I do have the Jets adding into one of the most talented rosters in the league, according to Samter, getting Brock Bowers. I think the Jets make the play on Brock Bowers. So Williams 1 to the Bears, Commanders May, Pats take Daniels, McCarthy trade up to the Vikings, Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Chargers. In at number 6, the Giants get Malik Neighbors. 7, Tennessee takes Joe Alt. 8, the Falcons get Rome Odunze. 9, the Bears select Dallas Turner. And then 10, the JTS Jets get Brock Bowers. All righty, that's the latest Zach Gelb Show top 10 mock draft that we will speculate. We'll take a break. When we come on back, more NCAA tournament talk. Brendan Haywood will join us next.
You're in a 5-minute break.
We continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Brendan Haywood is here, courtesy of BetOnline. Check out BetOnline for the most up-to-date games, lines, futures, and props in the upcoming NCAA men's tournament. Brendan will be in Salt Lake City for the first and second rounds of the NCAA tournament. He's kind enough to join us right now on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Brendan, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
Doing pretty good, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. So let me start you off with your UNC Tar Heels, #1 seed. Where's the confidence level with your squad headed into postseason play in the Big Dance?
Confidence is sky high right now. I love the way this Tar Heel team competes. I think R.J. Davis is the best guard in the country, if not the best player in the country. I know we had a disappointing loss to NC State in the ACC tournament, but I do think that will serve to get the guys' attention. Instead of hearing about how great they are for the last couple of days, they'll have that hunger inside of them, and I'm sure they're going to come out there playing with their hair on fire.
So I look at future matchups and what the committee tries to do from a storyline standpoint. And if we could get an Elite Eight matchup with the spot to the Final Four on the line between UNC and Arizona with the Caleb Love connection, that would really be something. I think that's what everyone is hoping for if you're kind of neutral here when you take a look at that part of the bracket.
Yeah, I think everybody would love to see that matchup, but I don't think it will be the storyline that people think it is. Caleb Love and Carolina, it wasn't a divorce that ended badly. Normally when a kid transfer out, he doesn't like the coaching staff, but Caleb still has a connection to the coaching staff. They actually call each other from time to time, and Caleb and some of the players on that team, they're still friends. So there would definitely be a big time competition. Obviously, he would love to have that matchup, but it wouldn't be the angst and the anger that you normally get when you have a kid transferring out of a program. Normally, it's a messy divorce. This was kind of amicable.
It's kind of the new norm now in college basketball. With NIL and the transfer portal, the divorces don't always have to be messy, and maybe this is just one of those situations like you're talking about. Brendan Haywood here with us. But on the other side, you look at Arizona, we could talk about this UNC-Arizona matchup, and Tommy Lloyd has done a nice job at Arizona, but in the March Madness 2 years ago had the #1 seed. They lost in the Sweet 16. Last year as a 2, lost to Princeton. So what is kind of the view from afar on Arizona? Can they meet up to these expectations now headed into March?
I think one of the things that people do that is a misconception in the tournament is they judge you off of your past. Oh, if you lost early the last 2 years, you're going to lose this year. Well, this year's different. This year they have Caleb Love on the team, averaging 18 points a game, a guy that's been in big-time games before. He's hit big-time shots. You saw the shots he hit 2 years ago in the Final Four against Duke. This guy understands what it is in those type of moments. So I like this Arizona ball club. I like the big fella inside. I think Arizona's primed for a big-time run. And when I pick my bracket, I do have Carolina going up against Arizona in the Elite Eight.
How far do you have UNC going, by the way?
Come on, man, championship. If not, I'll be excommunicado. Come on now. I got to roll my Tar. I got my Tar Heels going all the way to the end.
So it's unique with UNC because we don't always get to see guys that play for 3-4 years. I know some guys right now could be 5th year because of the whole COVID year. When you look back at this group, especially Armando Bacot and everything he's been through, just as this is starting to come to a close, what has really stood out to you with his career from one big man to another?
Yeah, I mean, Bacot's been there a minute. He's about to get a doctor's degree. So it's one it's one of those ones where he's a seasoned veteran, but that's how you win now. These one-and-done guys, that's not who's winning. These veteran teams that are a little bit older and guys that have been there and been through some things, those are the teams that win. I think if Carolina is going to make a run, as much as we talk about R.J. Davis, Bacot has to be strong every single night and give us that inside presence. And I think he's capable of that. And he can almost – we've seen him do it before. He had a Sean Mayish type of run when they went to the Final Four a couple of seasons ago. And I think he can tap back into that again.
Talking to Brendan Haywood right now. Another game that you have is Gonzaga and McNeese. A lot of people are going to jump on the Will Wade train, and they're disrespecting Mark Few and Gonzaga just because this isn't the best team that they've ever had in this NCAA tournament. Do you think Gonzaga is getting a little bit disrespected this time of the year?
Yeah, I think Gonzaga is definitely getting disrespected. And normally Mark Few has a team that's been flying higher on the radar, and you got a couple more NBA guys on the team. They don't have that this year, but that doesn't mean that they won't be ready. They won't be prepared. Mark Few, one of the best to ever do it. I like Gonzaga to win this game just because I think the coaching staff is going to have them ready to play.
And I take a look at this Midwest region. So you have Tennessee. There's always questions with Rick Barnes this time of the year, even though Dalton Connect is phenomenal and the SEC Player of the Year. Purdue with Matt Painter, they usually have early exit. It's in this NCAA tournament. Creighton has their limitations. And then there's Kansas. There's some health issues. We'll see if two of their players are going to be made available. But are people maybe sleeping on Kansas a little bit, or is it fair to wonder just when you don't know who's going to be able to play for them?
Well, right now, both their leading scorers are possibly out. They're saying they might get Hunter Dickerson back, but they're still going to be missing possibly 18 points per game from their leading scorers. So there's reason to have questions about Kansas just because how good can a team be if they're that compromised? Normally, if your leading scorer is not there, you're going to struggle a little bit. So I think that Kansas, the questions are definitely valid, and especially if Hunter Dickinson's not there because Bill Self's offense has always been high-low. Even when he was at Illinois, it was all about the high-low offense. And if the high-low aspect isn't there and Hunter Dickinson is compromised, not 100% or not playing at all, that could really help Kansas, and Sanford could go in there and sneak up on them.
The story of this tournament is going to be who's going to be able to take down UConn, if anybody at all. I think they're actually better this year than they were last year as a 4 seed a year ago, now the #1 overall seed. How do you think UConn is going to deal with that pressure going into this tournament with only 3 losses on the year?
Listen, UConn is one of the better teams in the nation. They're #1 in offense, #11 in defense. That combination right there tells you who they are, excuse me, and what they're all about. They run excellent half-court sets. When you talk about some of those weak side pin downs, slip screens, all the things that they run, Coach Hurley has those guys getting easy offense because of how fluid the offensive execution is. So I really like UConn. I'd have them in the championship game if they weren't on the side of the bracket going against Carolina. But I understand the allure. This team's only lost 3 games all year. Those games have been on the road. They're a great team. They have championship DNA and experience, well coached. I like UConn to make a big time run. I definitely have them in my Final Four.
Well, do this. Let's just say take UConn out of the mix, and I'm going to take UNC out of the mix because I know what the answer would be if I asked you if you don't have UConn win it all, you're going to say UNC. Who is that team? If it's not UConn, if it's not UNC, who's the team that you really latch on to and say, okay, this is the team that Brendan Haywood likes the most?
Well, it's going to be a team that people are probably going to be a little bit sour on right now because of their last performance. And that would be the Houston Cougars. Now, I know they got smacked by 20 by Iowa State, but this is one of the best defensive teams that we have in the country. Kelvin Sampson coaches aggressive defense. Those guys, that defense is always going to translate. They slow that game down. They're one of the slower teams when it comes to pace. They're going to slow it down, grind it out, play that high-level defense. They're going to be aggressive, too. You're going to have to keep them off the backboard, things of that nature. 50-50 balls or 80-20 balls. That's how Kelvin Sampson coaches. His guys go get those loose balls. And then I like Cryer and Shed. This time of year, you need a backcourt or you need guards that can go get it on their own when things break down. And I think that I like that Houston has 2 of those guys.
Last thing I'll ask you, some people are saying they're more excited for the women's tournament than the men's tournament. I'm more excited for the men's tournament, but I don't say that with any disrespect, right? We all know how great Caitlin Clark is. South Carolina is undefeated. We have the story of Angel Reese as well as LSU's trying to win another championship. You got Paige Buckets. How about the developments and the advancements of the women's game? Because we're talking about it now a lot more than we have in previous years.
Well, I think this is probably the first time since I've been watching college basketball that the elite upper echelon stars on the women's side, not the men's side. You talk about Caitlin Clark. You talk about Angel Reese. You talk about Juju Watkins. Like, the elite names on the women's side. Like, in the men's game, we have some really good teams. I talk about Houston, but you're not going to mention a guy like LJ Cryer in the same category as a Caitlin Clark. Or we talk about Angel Reese and what LSU is doing. And that, like, the names on the women's side are bigger than the names on the men's side. And that's just where it is right now. And that signifies 2 things. First of all, men's college basketball this year is a little bit down from an overall talent standpoint. We're going to get an infusion of talent next year. And then also it talks about where the women's game has made strides, and the women's game is really picking up. And some of the most watched games this year have been on the women's side. So I'm happy for the attention and exposure that they're getting because it's well overdue.
And you bring up a great point because usually in college athletics, the names really resonate with coaches. In the women's game, we're talking more about the players. In the men's game, there's not many players that you bring up, and I would say probably the face of men's college basketball right now is Danny Hurley, because, he'll be a maniac on the sideline. He could be polarizing. 50% of the people love him, 50% of the people hate him, and most importantly, he coaches at a big brand and a school that I consider a blue blood in UConn.
Yeah, and that's part of garnering attention as well. When you have people when you have those haters, those people that tune in just to see you fail, that's going to lift your brand up. And so Hurley definitely has that. Some people don't like him. Me personally, I like the fact that he's passionate and he coaches with a little bit of fire. Long as he keeps it under wraps to a certain degree, I don't have a problem with it at all. I think his guys don't have a problem with it, but don't get it twisted. They are one of the most prepared teams in college basketball when you talk about offensive execution and defensive efficiency.
You in or out on Kentucky this year?
I want to be in because they're so fun. But something in my heart is a defensive big man, a team that's that bad defensively. Seems like they might have some long days in the tournament, but they can score with anybody. You know what, man? I'm all here for the fun. Let's go with Kentucky to make a big time run as well. Just simply because when you talk about Dillingham, Shepherd, they have two guys that are definitely going to be taken in the top 10, might be taken in the top 5, and they can score on anybody with that immense 3-point ability. But their defense does scare me. I mean, they might let me go out there and get 15 to 20 on them right now, and I don't even have a left knee.
What a line. Well, you can catch him all throughout the tourney. First 2 rounds, Salt Lake City. He'll be there. Brendan Haywood is here, courtesy of BetOnline. Check out BetOnline for the most up-to-date game lines, futures, and props in the upcoming NCAA men's tournament. Brendan, enjoy the week. Coming up next week. Thanks so much for doing this. You be well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thursday in Salt Lake City. Let's do this. I'll tell you the poll question right now, and then we'll react to it on the other side. You can find it at Zach Gelb at CBS Sports Radio, and you can chime on in. Which NCAA tournament are you more interested in this year, the men's or the women's? 80.3% right now says the men's NCAA tournament. I'll chime in, give my 2 cents on the other side, and we'll grab your phone calls as well. 855-212-4CBS. It is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Update time. Here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the Bengals lost Jonah Williams, but now ready to add another offensive lineman, coming to terms with former Patriot Trent Brown on a 1-year deal. Chase Young comes to terms on a 1-year deal with the Saints, but now reportedly has a neck injury that will require a procedure that'll keep him out until after training camp opens this summer. Jerry Jeudy gets the big deal he's been looking for, a 3-year extension from the Browns, where the total of $58 million, $41 million is guaranteed. The Jets have found their complement to Garrett Wilson, coming to terms with former Chargers wideout Mike Williams, the 7-year veteran coming off a torn ACL, but reportedly gets a 1-year deal that could be worth as much as $15 million. March Madness tips off with the first 4 tonight. First up will be Wagner and Howard fighting for the right to play North Carolina on Thursday. The second part of the doubleheader features Colorado State and Virginia, the winner moving on to face Texas. And Purdue big man Zach Edey, a unanimous selection for All-America for the second straight year. Joining him on the first team are North Carolina's R.J. Davis and Jamal Shedd of Houston, Tennessee's Dalton Knecht, and Tristan Newton of UConn. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Football season never stops on CBS Sports Radio. Tune in to the JR Sport Brief Show weekdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific, for the latest NFL and college football news, live 24/7 on the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. We'll get into our poll question and give you a final answer on this in just a moment. Which NCAA tournament are you more interested in this year? The men's tournament, the women's tournament? But Matt in Arizona wants to chime in first about the NFL draft and what the Cardinals should do at 4. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Matt, go ahead.
Zach, love the show, man. Thanks for taking my call. A big Cardinals fan. If you're the Cardinals, you can't pass up Harrison if he's there with the 4 pick. You don't have a number 1 wideout. You don't have a number 2. You barely have a number 3 wideout going into the season. You need an offensive weapon for Murray. And I know they need offensive line, and they need a bunch of stuff, but you got to give him some weapons and give him a shot. I think you got to see if Murray's actually your guy. I don't think they should have extended him to begin with, but you got to let him sink or swim, but you got to give him a fair shot too.
Yeah, so I'm just going to be fascinated, Matt, by what the new regime with Monty Ossenfort is going to do now in year number 2, because you just made up a big point that's getting lost in this. I know that the extension was given to Kyler Murray, but it wasn't given to Kyler Murray under this regime. So will Monty Ossenfort feel like there's pressure to get the most around Kyler Murray this year? And if that's the case, you take Marvin Harrison Jr., and I've said this 9,000 times on this show, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. pound for pound is the best player in the draft. But if Monty Ossenfort's like, I got to set up the team for the next quarterback, like the Vikings could call you and give you 2 additional first-round picks in addition to the move from 4 to 11 that you'll fall back. And he may be, Monty Ossenfort, someone that comes from the Patriot way, kind of in that business of trying to acquire the most picks possible. And you got to remember, right, a year ago, he traded out of that 3 spot and picked up an extra first-round pick from the Texans. Now, little did we know the Texans were actually going to be good, but at the time, everyone thought that was going to be an extra top 5 pick that you were going to get. So I understand the Cardinal fans saying, I want to see what could happen with Kyler Murray. Because Kyler Murray, before the injury, was trending to be a good quarterback. We don't know if he could be great. And if that's the case, and you want to put him in the best position to succeed for this year, then you go get Marvin Harrison Jr. I just don't know if where there's smoke, there's a fire, that the Vikings are trying to get McCarthy or May, they're going to pass up getting that boatload in return if the Commanders and the Patriots stay put at 2 and 3.
Good points. Good points. Hey, by the way, before I go, don't play Pearl in dodgeball. He's so fragile, he'll end up breaking another bone. You know, he's got so many issues.
You know what?
Thanks for taking my call.
Matt, appreciate it. They poked the bear. I was in hibernation. There's many times I'm not trying to deliver haymakers. There's many times I am trying to deliver haymakers, but now it's in March. We're getting close to April. We're in the basketball season. It's not football right now. I know there's a bunch of stuff at the draft and off season, but it's not when I'm going crazy like a maniac. I'm not looking to smack another show right now. Trust me, there's many other months out of the year where I'll be more than happy with a little friendly fire here and smack down. But Samter, it was really EJ who kind of poked the bear here, and now I feel that we have to play them in dodgeball. But Matt in Arizona brings up a good point. Perloff would be a perfect person on the Jets. He always gets hurt. Like, big offseason acquisition, and then he gets hurt. Perloff could walk into that dodgeball game feeling pretty damn good, but he's going to find a way to get hurt once again. Ever since being here at CBS Sports Radio, he's had a finger injury. Now, I think he has something with his Achilles he was telling me about last time I saw him, or he has an MCL injury, something like that. This dude's a walking wounded right now. We play him in dodgeball, and Samter, we like starve Samter for a week, get him some pent-up frustration. Samter will be like a bull. We'll let him right out of the pit. And the next thing you know, Samter's going to be throwing just dodgeball after dodgeball at Andrew Perloff. I really think all we need is Samter to win a game of dodgeball against the morning show. I don't even think I'm necessary. I don't think Ack is necessary. I don't think Stu's necessary. I think Samter, if we get enough rage cooking up with Samter, could take down anyone at the network in a game of dodgeball.
And you've seen it. There is a lot of rage inside of me.
Yeah. All we need to do is just have a PR person schedule about a guest. And then 2 minutes before the interview, cancel the guest. And then Samter, I would feel very confident in him taking down any host here, or any behind-the-scenes person here in a game of dodgeball. Now, let me get to this NCAA tournament question. Which NCAA tournament are you more interested in this year? Is it the men's or is it the women's? Right now, 80.7% on our poll question say the men's over the women's. I think Brandon Haywood made a great point. The stars, the way that we recognize players, there's more star players in the women's tournament than the men's tournament. You have Caitlin Clark. You got Angel Reese. You got Paige Buckets, just for starters. There are more people that you could recognize from a player standpoint that are big names in the women's game compared to the men's game. The men's game right now doesn't have big recognizable stars. Like Dalton Connect. He just won the SEC Player of the Year. He's a first-team All-American. Like in the SEC, anyone could tell you who Dalton Connect is. But if you go down the streets, not an SEC country, and say, do you know who Caitlin Clark is or Dalton Connect? I think there's a better chance people will connect and give you the answer on Caitlin Clark.
Connect, haha.
Yeah, I did that on purpose. I don't even have to say no pun intended because that was pun intended. I think it's same as with Angel Reese. I think more people know who Angel Reese is than Dalton Connect. Maybe some people remember Armando Bacot from the last UNC run, but there are not a lot of big recognizable names in men's college basketball. And men's college basketball, and really football for the most part, is basically marketed off the faces being with the coaches. So it is tougher to understand which men's stars there are, and there's more stars in the women's game. But with that being said, I don't think, even though there's palpable buzz with this women's tournament, I don't think the ratings are going to be better than the men's tournament. Like last year, I'm reading this article in Forbes. March Madness Finals ratings set a record high for women, record low for men. So a record high for the women's game last year. It averaged 9.92 million viewers. That was the Iowa LSU game. And it peaked at 12.6 million. Now the men's final, which was UConn over San Diego State, it was a record low. It was still 14.69 million viewers. So I still believe that the men's tournament is going to create more buzz than the women's tournament. But Santer, you've been here since the inception of the network. I'm sure there's been a ton of years, probably more years than not, that the women's tournament didn't really even get talked about that much until the Final Four. The men's tournament gets talked about all throughout. I still think that's going to be the case, but even I will say, and I have more interest in the men's tournament than the women's tournament. And it's just the way that I'm gonna watch. I'll watch more of the men's, right? My entire life I watch more of the men's than the women's. But the fact that this is even a conversation, and someone like me, I am intrigued by South Carolina. I love Dawn Staley. Can they find a way to be undefeated? Can they find a way to reach perfection? I will go out of my way when Iowa is playing to watch Caitlin Clark because she's basically the Steph Curry of the women's game. So there are names and there are storylines throughout the year that even someone that doesn't watch much college basketball, women's college basketball, will be familiar with. And I saw that the bracket came out for the women's, and they actually put Iowa and LSU in the same region. So you could see, now LSU is a 3 seed this year, and Iowa's a 1, but you could have them meeting up in the Elite 8 for a spot in the Final Four on the line. I don't know about you. Is that the committee saying that they just don't believe LSU was going to get to the Final Four and they wanted a guarantee maybe of seeing Iowa LSU? Because even though it's not guaranteed, it's probably more likely that they would meet up in an Elite 8 if you have them in the same region rather than you put them on the opposite side of the bracket just hoping that they're going to get to the championship game. Or maybe you could have put them on the same, like the right side of the bracket where both of them avoid South Carolina and have one on the top part of the bracket and one on the bottom part of the bracket.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. It feels so weak to put the two biggest draws in the same region.
Yeah.
If you at least put them on the same side of the bracket so they meet in the Final Four, fine. That still feels a little bit weak. It's Caitlin Clark, it's Angel Reese, it's LSU, the defending champs.
The storyline from last year.
It's all of that, and they met in that epic championship game. Like, there was so much to get into. It does feel a little bit anticlimactic, but maybe we get a better chance of seeing that game. Here's my thing. LSU's interesting. Angel Reese is interesting. Kim Mulkey is interesting.
Well, she scares me, Kim Mulkey.
Yeah, you've said this.
There is no coach in sports that intimidates me more than Kim Mulkey. She has a lot of grandchildren. They always show her grandchildren, I believe. If Kim Mulkey was like yelling at me, I would fear for my life. I would absolutely fear for my life. You got to stop typing. You got your microphone on. I keep on hearing the typing. It drives me crazy. But go ahead. Continue the point that you were making.
But as scary as Kim Mulkey is and as good as Angel Reese is, I'm not watching a single women's tournament game that doesn't include Caitlin Clark. I'm not watching South Carolina. I'm not watching
South
LSU.
Carolina.
I'm
they're
watching
undefeated.
Caitlin Clark and Caitlin Clark only. That's it. Those are the only games I'm going to be watching. And I think that for the majority of sports watching fans, outside of like women's college basketball fans, I would say that's the majority of people. Yes, Angel Reese is interesting. I don't care enough. South Carolina is great. Dawn Staley's awesome. I don't care enough. Caitlin Clark drives the needle.
Big draw.
I'm going to watch Caitlin Clark, and I'm going to watch the men's tournament, even though I barely know any of the top 10 players, because the men's game, and this is what we talk about, guys are one and done. The best players are one and done. So just when they're getting good, they're gone, right? The reason why we know Angel Reese was she was there last year in the championship. We know Caitlin Clark because she's been there for 4 years, breaking records and dominating, right? Those old Duke teams, Laettner, Hurley, even the UNLV teams and the Fab Five, they were there for 2, 3, 4 years, depending on the player. So you got to know the player. They came back year after year. We don't get that anymore. So you don't know the players anymore. It's all about the coaches. That's why the men's game isn't as interesting.
So I will agree with you. LSU is not as big of a draw this year unless they're up against Iowa. Like, I'm looking at this tournament on the women's side. There's 3 things that are appealing to me. Number 1 is Caitlin Clark. Number 2 is seeing Caitlin Clark go up against Angel Reese for a spot for the Final Four on the line, with it being LSU and then it being Iowa. And then third is Dawn Staley and seeing if she could get this undefeated run at South Carolina. But yeah, I would still say, like, I will go out of my way to watch as many of the men's game as possible. Like on Thursday, I will change my schedule on Friday, change my schedule in the morning. So right when that ball is thrown up in the air, I am there for the first game. For the women's tournament, those are the 3 ways that I'm watching it. But it's, it just shows you the growth of the sport and the popularity of it with how much we have talked about it and how much it's being brought up that this is even a conversation. But it's not reflecting. I know it's a small sample size, but it's not reflecting in our polls. But I will be curious what the total ratings will end up being. And right now, which NCAA tournament are you more interested in? 80.3% say the men's and 19.7% say the women's tournament. All righty, that concludes another edition of the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I would recruit Kim Mulkey, by the way, to join our dodgeball team if she wants. She would be very good in the dodgeball court. I can guarantee you that. Very much big thanks to Chris Hess, Michael Samter as well, Christian Laettner for joining us, Brendan Haywood, and each and every one of you for participating, whether it's in the chat or on the phones or just listening to us on the radio or on the Odyssey app. SiriusXM as well. All righty, we out. Talk to you tomorrow, everybody. Peace!